My 12-year-old son told me he had seen my husband walk into a roadside motel with my own mother. At first, I laughed it off, convinced he had to be mistaken. But after discovering my husband had lied about where he was, I drove there myself. The moment I opened the motel room door, the sight inside drained every bit of color from my face. The last thing I expected to find in room 114 of the Parkway Motor Lodge was my own handwriting. Not my husband tangled up with a stranger. Not my mother in some scene I'd have to bleach out of my brain. Nothing you're imagining right now. And believe me, on the drive over, I imagined all of it. What drained the color from my face was a yellow legal pad lying open on the bed. My name was written on it 31 times. Claire Bennett, Claire Bennett, Claire Bennett. The first few were shaky like a child tracing letters through wax paper. By the bottom of the page, they were perfect. Better than perfect. The little collapsed loop I make in the B when I'm in a hurry. The way my E's go flat at the end of a long day. Someone had practiced being me until they got it right. My mother sat on the edge of the mattress with her reading glasses on and a pen in her hand. My husband of 16 years stood by the window like a man waiting for a verdict he already knew. And spread across that sagging motel bed in tidy, dated stacks because my mother has never once in her 67 years made an untidy pile was every dollar my dead father left me. Nobody was cheating on anybody in that room. What was happening in that room was worse, and it had been happening for 2 years. Let me back up 9 hours to the last normal morning of my life. My name is Claire. I'm 41. For 11 years, I've worked as a medical billing specialist for a family practice, which means I read explanation of benefit statements the way other people read novels. I know what a real document looks like. I know what a fake one looks like. Paper doesn't lie. People lie. And then they leave paper behind, and if you can stand to read it in order, the paper always tells you the truth. I want you to remember that about me. It matters later. My husband Logan is a construction estimator. He can walk through a stranger's building and tell you within a few $100s what it will cost to make it right again. 16 years of marriage. He kissed my forehead that Tuesday morning the same way he had roughly 4,000 mornings before it, tasted his coffee, made a face at it, and drank it anyway. Then he said something that meant nothing at the time and everything afterward. Your mom called me yesterday. She wants to help more with Noah's medical stuff, the paperwork side. You should let her, Claire. You're drowning. I remember being touched. My mother, Diane, lives 3 hours north in the house I grew up in. Retired school secretary, 31 years at the same elementary school. Treasurer of her church going on a decade. She is the kind of woman other people hand their money to without thinking twice because she wears cardigans, remembers birthdays, and keeps butterscotch candies in her purse for other people's children. Her handwriting won an award once. I'm not joking. A penmanship certificate, framed in her hallway since 1974, and she had helped with paperwork before. When Logan and I adopted Noah as a newborn, a closed adoption 12 years ago, it was my mother who sat at our kitchen table with the agency's forms fanned out in her tidy stacks, reading every line so I didn't have to. So when Logan said she wanted to help with Noah's medical paperwork, it didn't sound strange. It sounded like her. Noah asked if Dad could pick him up after practice. Logan said he couldn't. Late meeting. Also not strange. Logan had been having late meetings on Tuesdays since June. You see it, right? Standing where you're standing, you see all of it. I lived inside it, and I saw nothing. Here's what I did see that year. I saw my son. Noah's cough started the previous winter. Not a cold cough. A deep, wet, seizing thing that would grab him out of a dead sleep and shake him for 3-4 minutes at a stretch while I stood in his doorway doing the only thing I could do, which was nothing. I started sleeping with my bedroom door open so I could hear him. I started keeping a log. Of course I did. I'm a billing specialist. Logging things is my whole personality. A spiral notebook where I wrote down every episode, time, duration, what he'd eaten, the weather. Page after page of entries like 2:47 a.m., 4 minutes, scared us both. We saw our pediatrician, then an allergist, then an ENT. One said allergies, one said reflux, one suggested gently stress. Every specialist asked the same intake question, any family history of respiratory disease, and every time, Logan and I looked at each other and said the same thing. We don't know. Closed adoption. The line on the form stayed blank, and I swear some of those doctors looked at that blank line like it was the answer itself, like the mystery lived inside it. He missed 4 days of school in a single month. He was 12 years old, and he'd started apologizing to us after every episode, which broke something in me that hasn't fully set right since. There was money for this. That's the part I want you to sit with. My father, Frank, died 5 years ago. Aortic aneurysm, 68 years old, gone between the first phone call and the second. When the estate settled, my share came to $151,206.40. I know the number the way you know your own birthday. And because I was drowning in grief and my mother was standing right there being calm and organized the way she is always calm and organized, I did the thing that made sense at the time. I let her set it up. An account at First Meridian with both our names on it. Dad's money, we called it. It was going to be Noah's someday. College. A rainy day. Every so often over the years, I'd ask about it. And my mother would say things like, it's laddered in CDs, sweetheart, there are penalties. Or, the statements come to me, I keep them all filed, don't you worry about it. And I didn't worry about it, because worrying about whether your own mother is telling the truth about money is not a thing a normal person does. By last spring, with the specialist bills stacking up, I'd started saying out loud that maybe it was time to use some of Dad's money. There was a referral on the table to a respiratory center out of state, the kind of place that takes the cases nobody else can solve, and it was not going to be cheap. Every time I brought it up, something small and strange happened. My mother changed the subject. Logan changed the subject. I noticed it the way you notice a smell in a house you live in, which is to say I noticed it, and then I stopped noticing it. There were other things I stopped noticing. Logan's phone, which had spent 16 years face up on the counter, spent this year face down. Logan himself, who seemed to have aged 5 years between March and June, a gray, pressed flat look I chalked up to worry about Noah because I had the same look. The water stain on the hallway ceiling outside Noah's room, which appeared in the spring, and the mildewy smell up there that I kept mentioning, and Logan kept saying he'd had a guy look at it, and the guy said it was cosmetic. My husband estimates repairs on buildings for a living. He told me our ceiling was cosmetic. I believed him, because 16 years, that's why. One more thing I filed away and forgot. In July, we took Noah camping for a week at Silver Lake. 7 nights in a tent, damp air, campfire smoke, everything that should have wrecked him. He barely coughed all week. I remember thinking, I remember being happy. I did not open the spiral notebook and read the entries in order because I didn't yet know that was the only skill this whole year would actually require. So, that Tuesday, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Noah came through the kitchen door still wearing his bike helmet, and he was shaking so hard the buckle rattled. Mom, I just saw Dad. He went into a motel with Grandma. I laughed. I want to be honest about that because I've replayed it 1,000 times. I laughed at my son because what he was saying was impossible in at least 3 directions. My mother lives 3 hours away and hadn't called. Logan was at work, the way he'd been at work every Tuesday for 16 years. Honey, you saw 2 strangers. He shook his head so hard the helmet shifted. Dad's blue jacket, Grandma's silver hair. They got out of the same car. They walked in together. Here's the thing about Noah, and every parent of a kid like this will know exactly what I mean. He does not lie. He is constitutionally incapable of it. He is the child who confesses to the broken lamp before you've noticed the lamp. He'd cut through the lot behind the Route 9 gas station on his way home from practice, stopped for a Gatorade, and looked across at exactly the wrong moment, or exactly the right one, depending on where you're standing. My phone buzzed on the counter. Logan, don't wait on dinner. Stuck at work, going to be late. Love you. My stomach went somewhere below the floor. What did Dad say? Noah asked. He says he's working. Mom, I saw him. I looked at my son, knuckles white on the helmet strap, eyes going glassy, chest already doing the tight thing it did before a bad night, and I said the 4 most important words I have ever said to anyone. I believe you, Noah. Relief moved across his face. Then fear replaced it. Because if I believed him, then something was very wrong, and he was the one who'd carried it into the house. I called our neighbor Sarah, who took one look at my face and asked exactly 0 questions. I dropped my keys twice getting to the car. The whole drive out Route 9. My brain kept pitching me lifelines. A surprise party at a motel on a Tuesday after a text lie. A family emergency my husband knew about and I didn't. Every explanation collapsed faster than the one before it, because there is no innocent version of your husband and your mother meeting at a motel and lying to you about it. The Parkway Motor Lodge is the kind of place you drive past your whole life without once looking at. Half the letters on the sign were dark. 4 cars in the lot, and one of them was Logan's gray Pilot, parked right up front. Not hidden. Not even a little. He'd lied to me by text while his car sat in a motel parking lot in daylight, which somehow made it worse. He wasn't even afraid of being caught. My mother's Buick was nowhere. I registered that, filed it, kept walking. I passed a heavyset man with silver hair at the vending alcove, windbreaker, talking low into his phone, and thought nothing of him at all. Remember him. I didn't. Inside, the clerk barely looked up. Late 20s, name tag that said Renata, a paperback folded open under the counter. I need my husband's room number. I have papers to drop off. Can't give out room numbers. I pulled up our anniversary photo. Logan laughing, arm around me. That's my husband. Our son is sick. Please. She looked at the photo, then at my face, and something in her expression shifted into a thing I will never forget as long as I live, because it was pity, and I found out later it wasn't even the right pity. She'd seen this trio before. She'd built her own story about it. Hers was wrong too. She leaned in. 114. The hallway smelled like old carpet and bleach. A game show murmured behind somebody's wall. My pulse was in my teeth. Through the door of 114, I could hear my mother's voice, low and urgent, and then Logan's, tense, almost pleading, and I stood there with my whole life on the other side of a hollow core door. I didn't knock. I grabbed the handle and pushed, and the door swung open because the security bar had been flipped out to prop it, so that the man from the vending alcove could carry his folders back in without knocking. His rules, I'd learn. Always his rules. And there it was. The bed full of bank statements in my mother's tidy dated stacks, a manila folder tabbed Frank, estate in her prize-winning hand, 2 documents flagged with neon sign here stickers, my mother, glasses on, pen up, frozen, Logan by the window, turning toward me in slow motion with a face I had never seen on him in 16 years, and the legal pad, my name, 31 times, getting better as it went. Whose signature is that? I asked. My voice came out flat and strange, like a recording of me. My mother said, Claire, it is not what it looks like. It's my name, Mom. Behind me, a throat cleared. The silver-haired man from the vending alcove stood in the doorway holding a leather folio, and he took in the room in about a second and a half, me, the pad, my mother's pen, and did the single most chilling thing I've ever watched a human being do. He smiled, warm, grandfatherly. "I'll let you folks visit," he said, and he was gone, calm as a man leaving a diner. A moment later, an engine turned over in the lot. That was Gerald Whitfield. Jerry, to my mother. Remember him too. Here is where I need to tell you what I did next, because it's the only part of that day I'm proud of. I did not scream. I did not fall apart. 11 years of processing claims took the wheel, and some cold clerical machinery in me said, document first, feel later. I took out my phone and I photographed everything. The stacks, in order. The folder tab. Both flagged documents. A transfer authorization and a release of claims, my name typed under the signature lines. The legal pad, close up. My mother kept talking the entire time. Temporary, she was saying. Jerry is very close to a liquidity event. It all comes back, sweetheart. Words I now know are what a con sounds like after it has fully colonized a person. Logan said my name once, quietly, and then had the sense to stop. 41 photos, time stamped. Then I picked up the legal pad. It was my name. I decided that made it mine, and I walked out. My mother called after me from the doorway of room 114, and what she called was not "I'm sorry," and it was not "come back." It was, "Claire, please don't tell anyone yet. We'll lose everything. Everything." I drove home at 10 and 2 like a student driver, and in my rearview mirror the motel sign flickered its half-dead letters, and I understood that whatever this was, it had a vocabulary I didn't know yet, and I was going to learn every word of it. That night, after Noah was finally asleep, Logan sat across the kitchen table and took his life apart for me piece by piece. And to his credit, the one shred of credit I could hand him, he didn't round a single corner. In March, he'd called my mother, quietly, sweetly, wanting to surprise me. "Let's use some of Frank's money for the out-of-state referral. Take that weight off, Claire." And my mother had gone silent on the phone in a way he said made the hair on his arms stand up. And then, in pieces, over 3 terrible phone calls, it came out. The money was gone. Almost all of it. It had been going and going for 2 years into something called the Whitfield Private Income Group. "And you didn't tell me," I said. He looked at the table. "She swore it was coming back. He had her convinced. He had me half convinced, Claire. The man is good. One more cycle, one more quarter. I thought if I could just hold it together until the money came back, I could hand you the solution instead of the crater. You were barely sleeping. Noah was..." He stopped. "There's no version of this where I'm not a coward. I know that. It got worse, because it always gets worse." In April, Whitfield had squeezed him. The fund needed a good faith participation to keep my mother's position open. Logan took an $1,800 loan against his own 401k and fed it into the fire, telling himself he was buying time. The Tuesday meeting started in June. Always the Parkway. Always cash for the room. Always one car, because Jerry didn't do offices, didn't do houses, didn't do paper trails he didn't control. Discretion protects the fund's clients. Logan had started recording the calls on his phone by August. "For leverage," he said. "For when it went wrong." "When?" I repeated. "You said when." He'd gone to the motel that day to draw a line. No signature, no release, not one more dollar until money moved in the other direction. That was the pleading Noah's mother heard through the door. The one point of light in this whole black year. My husband begging my mother not to sign my name. She'd brought her own pen. I didn't cry that night. My ears rang, which I've since learned is a thing that happens to me instead. I asked him one last question. "You watched me sit in this kitchen Googling pediatric pulmonologists at 2 in the morning, and you knew we had the money, and you knew it was gone, and it wasn't really a question, and he didn't really answer it, and I took my pillow and slept on the floor of my son's room, where at least the sounds in the dark were sounds I understood. The first Meridian branch opened at 9. I was third through the door at 9:02 with my ID, the account number, and the particular calm of a woman who has decided to feel nothing until further notice. The branch manager was a woman named Marisol Vega, and I will always be grateful for how quickly her professional smile fell off when she pulled up the account, because it told me I wasn't crazy. Balance, $1,807.44, out of $151,260.40. She printed 26 months of statements while I sat very still in the little glass office. The story was all there, in order, the way paper always is. 14 transfers to Whitfield Private Income Group, LLC, totaling $96,500. The first one's modest, the later one's desperate. Roughly $32,900 moved in dribs to accounts and cards in my mother's name. Another $19,900 gone as cash, withdrawn in polite little sips, never enough at once to raise an eyebrow. And the withdrawal slips. Marisol pulled the images. There was my signature, slip after slip, year after year. My collapsed B, my tired E's, on paper I had never touched in my life. I laid my driver's license on the desk next to one of the printouts, signature to signature, and watched Marisol's face do the arithmetic. "Mrs. Bennett," she said carefully, "the statements for this account. The mailing address was changed 26 months ago." She turned the screen. A change of address form sent to my mother's house. Signed by me. Of course it was. 26 months. I sat with that number while the printer hummed. Logan had known for 7 months. The Tuesdays had been happening for 4. But the first forged slip was dated 2 years and 2 months back. Before Noah's cough, before any of it. My mother hadn't been dragged into this. She had started it, alone. And then, when her own money ran out, she had started signing my name. I laughed, one wrong little bark of a laugh, and apologized to Marisol, who slid the tissue box 2 inches toward me and pretended she hadn't. That night, I did what I do. I researched. FINRA has a public tool called Broker Check where you can look up any license licensed broker in America. I typed in Gerald Whitfield. No results. The SEC keeps its own database of registered investment advisors. Nothing. The Whitfield Private Income Group, LLC, traced back to a registered agent at a mail store suite 2 towns over. In the next county's court records, I found a default judgment against him from years back. $210,000, never collected, sitting in the public record like a lighthouse nobody had bothered to look at. Then I found the Facebook page, and the floor dropped again. Seminar photos, a hotel ballroom, a screen reading, "Your money should retire harder than you did," rows of folding chairs, a free lunch buffet along the wall, Jerry at the front in the same windbreaker, mid-gesture, beaming, front row, second from the left, my mother. And under a post from last year, someone's cautious comment asking whether anyone had actually gotten their principal back. A reply from Diane Merrick, in the voice she used for church bulletin corrections. "Jerry has made retirement possible for a lot of us. Shame on the negativity." 14 likes. One of those likes was Dolores, from her church, my mother's friend of 30 years. I called her the next morning with my heart in my shoes, and I was right to be afraid. Diane had personally brought her in. Dolores was down $38,000 of a fixed income she could not spare, still waiting on statements, still, her word, confident. So no, my mother was not only prey. She recruited. She defended him in public with her name while she was forging mine in private. And I want to tell you, there's a version of this where I found a way to make that make sense, but there isn't. There are just stages of watching a mask come down, and every stage costs you something you don't get back. 9 days after the motel, Noah's long-awaited appointment finally came up. Dr. Priya Raman, pediatric pulmonologist, 14 years at the Children's Respiratory Center downtown. I brought the spiral notebook because I bring documentation to things. It's the whole personality, remember. She read it like it was scripture. You logged every episode, times, duration, weather. She flipped pages. "Do you know how rare this is?" Then she stopped on July. "What happened here? He's nearly clear for a week. We were camping, Silver Lake." Dr. Raman looked up over her glasses and asked the question that 4 other doctors, staring at a blank family history line, had never asked. "Mrs. Bennett, any water damage in your home? Musty smells? Leaks? Anything like that?" The hallway ceiling, the stain, the smell I'd stopped smelling. The guy said it was cosmetic. I don't remember answering. I remember the drive home and standing in the upstairs hallway outside my son's bedroom door, under that stain, breathing in. The environmental hygienist came Thursday in a white suit, ran his tape lifts and his air cassettes, and then opened a neat rectangle in the hallway drywall. And there it was. A dark bloom spread across the inside of the wall like a map of a country you'd never want to visit, fed for months by a slow roof leak, sitting 2 feet from the return air duct that fed my son's bedroom. The lab report 10 days later confirmed heavy mold contamination in the wall cavity and the duct run. Dr. Raman's allergy panel came back that same week. Noah lit up for exactly the molds growing in that wall. He wasn't a mystery. He was never a mystery. He was a healthy kid breathing a damaged house, worst at night, in his own room, which is why my log said 2:47 a.m. over and over, which is why a tent at Silver Lake fixed him better than 3 specialists. And here is the part I had to say out loud to Logan, in the driveway, quietly, because Noah was inside. There was a contractor's email in Logan's inbox from March 11. Anchor Roofing and Restoration. A real inspection. A real quote. $13,420 for the roof repair and remediation. And Logan's one-line reply, hold for now, March. The same month he found out the money was gone. He'd looked at that number, looked at the crater my mother had dug, done the only math he had left, and told me the ceiling was cosmetic. The cough was the house. The house was the money. The money was my mother. I sat down on the curb in front of my own home while the hygienist packed his van, and Logan stood 3 feet away not touching me because he knew, and the two of us stayed like that for a while, in the ruins of a thing that termites had been eating for 2 years while we called it a marriage and a family and a plan. Then I got up because there was a child inside who needed his peak flow meter and his dinner, and I had calls to make. Here is where the professionals come in, and I want to name them because they are the reason this story ends the way it ends instead of the way these stories usually end. Carol Jung, estate and fiduciary litigation, 19 years. Her office coffee is terrible and her instincts are not. She spread my 41 motel photos, the bank statements, and the legal pad across her conference table like a dealer laying out a hand and said, okay, civilly this is conversion and breach of fiduciary duty, and the forgeries stop every clock they'll try to run out on you. Criminally, it isn't your call alone, and I need you to understand that early. She flagged the release of claims from the motel bed, the one with the neon sticker, and slid it into a plastic sleeve like it was radioactive. This document is him trying to buy his way out of a lawsuit with your signature. The fact that he needed it means he's afraid of exactly what we're about to do. Beth Halverson, CPA, certified in financial forensics, 12 years of reconstructing exactly this kind of wreckage. Her line, which I think about weekly, money leaves footprints. My job is plaster casts. She rebuilt the whole 26 months into a binder with tabs and a timeline. Every transfer, every cash sip, every dollar of Logan's $1,800. And when she was done, the binder had a name, and the name was Exhibit B, and Detective Alan Pruitt, Financial Crimes Unit, 16 years. It turned out his unit already had a thin open file on Gerald Whitfield, a complaint from a retired dentist 1 county over that had never quite grown legs. Then I walked in with the photos, the pad, the bank imaging, Logan's Logan's recordings, and a motel clerk named Renata, whose register showed room 114 rented for 9 consecutive Tuesdays, paid cash, under the name G. Whitman. Pruitt went through my phone photos twice and then looked at me for a long second. You photographed the room before anyone could clean it up. Time-stamped. In order. He shook his head slowly. 16 years. You'd be surprised how rare that is. On one of Logan's recordings, from September, you can hear Jerry Whitfield say in that warm ballroom voice, "Your wife's signature is a formality. Diane handles the formalities." Carol Jong played it 3 times. That one became Exhibit F. Then came the week where everything happened at once, the way it always seems to. Monday, a letter from First Meridian's fraud department. Because my signatures had been accepted on paper items across 26 months, and because the statements had been diverted so I'd never had the chance to catch them, the bank's exposure was limited. They would make good on the forged items inside the review window, 13 months worth, $23,180, but only upon receipt of notarized affidavits of forgery, in which the account holder identifies, by name, the person believed to have forged her signature. 10 business days to file. Identify, by name. There was exactly one name. Tuesday. Carol called before 8. A listing alert. Whitfield's Lakeview condo had gone on the market. Price to move. He's liquidating, Claire. If we want a prejudgment attachment on those proceeds, I need the criminal side warm, and the criminal side gets warm when the bank paperwork lands. The clock you're on is his clock now. Wednesday. The remediation company's first invoice. $9,850 due before demolition Monday. Dr. Rahman was clear that Noah shouldn't sleep in that room until the wall and duct were gone. And Wednesday night, my mother came. She didn't call first. She stood on my porch holding a chicken tetrazzini in her good Pyrex with the cornflower lid, because in my mother's world, there is no catastrophe that cannot be approached casserole first. And I stood in the doorway and did not take it. And we both looked at it hanging there between us like a hostage. 10 minutes, she said. Please. She sat at my kitchen table, her old seat, the one she'd sat in fanning out adoption paperwork 12 years ago. And she begged. Not in the movie way. In the accountant way, which is worse. If I signed the bank affidavits, there would be a criminal referral. A criminal referral meant charges. Charges meant she would lose the house. I'm 67, Claire. I'm your mother. It was never supposed to touch you. It was supposed to be back before you ever, and then the sentence she will never be able to unsay. Jerry says if you'll just sign his release, he can start moving money back within the quarter, and none of this has to— You're still calling him Jerry. Silence. Upstairs, right on schedule, Noah started coughing. Long, wet, seizing. Both of us sat there listening to it, and I watched my mother's face while my son fought for air above her head in the room her money pit had poisoned. And I watched her— I need you to believe me because I watched very closely— reach for the next argument. That was the whole verdict right there. She heard him too. She went back to Jerry. Get out of my house, Mom. She left the casserole. I stood at the counter for a long time and then I put it in the outside trash, dish and all, cornflower lid and all, and it is the single pettiest thing I have ever done, and I would do it again this afternoon. Later that night, Noah appeared in the kitchen doorway in his pajamas, having heard more than I wanted him to, the way 12-year-olds always have. Mom, did I break everything? By telling you? I put both hands on his shoulders so he could see my face was steady. Listen to me. Everything was already broken. You are the only person in this whole story who told the truth the very first time it mattered. You didn't break the family, Noah. You're the reason I could start fixing it. He nodded and coughed and let me tuck him into the guest room, and I sat in the hallway outside his door until 2 in the morning like a security guard for a kingdom of one. Logan, for what it's worth, said only one fully correct sentence that entire week. I told him about the affidavits, about what signing them meant, and he didn't hesitate for a second. Sign it. Whatever it costs us. Sign it. Thursday, 11:14 a.m. First Meridian, the little glass office. A notary with a sunflower lanyard. 4 affidavits, 1 line each where I printed, in block letters, the name of the person I believed had forged my signature, Diane Merrick, my mother, my mother, my mother, my mother. Then the signature lines. My mother spent 2 years learning to write my name. I signed it 4 times in 11 seconds. Slowly, correctly, mine. And it turns out that is the entire difference between her version of my signature and the real one. Hers could only ever take things. Mine could end this. The dominoes went the way Carol said they would. The affidavits triggered the referral. The referral warmed Pruitt's file white hot. Beth's binder did the rest. A judge granted the attachment, and the condo money froze mid-sale. A warrant went out for Gerald Whitfield, but by then the room at the Parkway had gone quiet. The LLC's mail store suite was empty, and Jerry was simply gone, which, Pruitt told me without much surprise, is what men like him do the moment a signature stops being available. A subpoena opened his storage unit instead. 61 client files, 3 states. My mother and Dolores were 2 lines in a very long ledger. They found him 7 months later in Boise. He'd rented a hotel ballroom under a new banner, the Whitfield Legacy Income Circle, and detectives walked in during the free lunch, between the salad course and the testimonial slide, and arrested him in front of 40 retirees with their name tags still on. I have read the arrest report. It says he asked the officers to let him finish the presentation. I think about that more than I should. He eventually pleaded to securities fraud and theft by deception across multiple counts. 7 years. Restitution ordered at just under $2 million across more than 40 victims, which sounds like justice until you learn what everyone in these cases learns. Restitution restitution orders are mostly poetry. The court-appointed receiver clawed back what could be clawed, the frozen condo money, some vehicles, an annuity he'd hidden badly. And in the end, the victims got about 13 cents on the dollar. My envelope, when it finally came, was $19,642. The bank paid the $23,180 on the forged items inside the window. The other 13 months were, in the fraud department's phrasing, outside the institution's exposure, which is bank for gone. And my mother, charged with 2 felony counts of forgery. She pleaded guilty. Carol says the practice pad made any other plan impossible, and I believe her, because how do you stand in front of a jury next to 31 drafts of your daughter's name? At sentencing, the judge looked at her age, her empty record, her 40 years of church treasuries and school offices, and gave her 5 years of probation, 300 hours of community service, and a restitution order of $118,000. She sold the house I grew up in to start paying it. She lives in an apartment near her sister now. Her church elected a new treasurer at the fall meeting, citing, per the bulletin Dolores mailed me, a desire for fresh perspectives. Dolores got a slice of the receiver's money too. She hugged me on the courthouse steps and thanked me. And I have never in my life felt worse being thanked, because it should never have been my job to protect my mother's best friend from my mother. I asked for no fireworks at the sentencing and I got none. I didn't want a cage. I wanted the truth to have weight on the record, in ink, with her real signature at the bottom of it for once. It does. That's the whole victory. It's smaller than you want and bigger than you'd think. The wall came down that first Monday. The duct run after it, then the roof, paid for out of Logan's remaining 401k, and later, the bank's check. New drywall, new paint. Doctor. Raman put Noah on a daily inhaled treatment and rechecked him through the fall, and his numbers climbed the way she said they would. Not a movie cure, a real one. 2 steps forward, 1 cold season step back, then forward again. I still sleep with my door open. 8 weeks after the demolition, I woke at 3 in the morning to a sound I didn't recognize, and lay there with my heart going until I understood what it was. Nothing. The sound was nothing. My son was asleep down the hall, breathing like a kid in a mattress commercial, and I got up anyway and stood in his doorway in the smell of new paint, and I sat down on the hallway floor right where the stain used to be, and I cried for the first time since room 114, the whole year of it, in one sitting, on the floor, alone, which is exactly how I'd wanted it. Logan moved out in November to an apartment 8 minutes away. That was my ask, and he met it the way he's met everything since March of that year. No defense, no bargaining. He's in therapy. We're in another kind together, twice a month. Tuesdays are his nights with Noah now. Practice pickup, terrible frozen pizza, peak flow readings texted to me at 8:30 without fail, with a photo of the meter, because he understands that in this family, from now on, we show our paper. I took the Tuesdays back on purpose, if you're wondering. It was that or hate a day of the week for the rest of my life. Are we getting divorced? People ask. In the sideways ways people ask. The honest answer is that my husband is a man who found a sinkhole under our family, and instead of telling me, stood over it for 7 months, waving people around it, and also a man who took a 401k loan trying to save my mother from herself and begged her in a motel room, with his voice breaking, not to sign my name. Both of those men are him. He's an estimator. He knows better than anyone that some structures come down and some get rebuilt, and that you can't tell which from the curb. Inspections ongoing. That's the truest sentence I have. 14 months out, here's the ledger. Noah is 13, 4 inches taller, and rides his bike past the Route 9 gas station without slowing down. Last month, out of nowhere, he asked me if Grandma was a bad person. I told him the truth as carefully as I could, that she did a bad thing for a long time, and lied about it to everyone, and that people are what they do when the truth is standing in the kitchen asking to be believed. Then I told him what I'll tell him at every age he asks, that he's the only person in this entire story who told the truth the first time, at the exact moment it cost the most, and that his mother will be in his corner until the sun burns out. The county sends me my mother's restitution in $500 pieces, month after month, a scar with a payment plan. And her letters come too, first of every month like an invoice. My name and address on the envelope in that beautiful certificate-winning hand. Steady, elegant, not one wobble in it. And why would there be? She's had so much practice. I don't open them. I put them in a shoebox in the closet, unread, in tidy dated stacks, because apparently I am her daughter after all. People think that's cold. Maybe, but I already know what's inside. I've known since a Tuesday afternoon in room 114 of the Parkway Motor Lodge, standing over a yellow legal pad while the color drained out of my face. I already know exactly what my name looks like in her